Well, I'm excited today to introduce to you Brent and Chris from Profi in Atlanta, Georgia. And we started working together 2 years ago in February 2020 at the start of the pandemic. And we're going to tell a story about what's been going on. So Brent and Chris, welcome. Good to see you here, boys.
It's great to see you again, Rob. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, and this is a good story because this is a story about what we've done together in the coaching program. And now they've left that program to go into other things. So this is a start and stop success story. So let's start with this. Give us a summary before we met in early 2020, what the firm looked like, the size, the shape, the focus, attitude. Just talk about what it was before we actually got together. Brent.
So, prior to meeting you, Rob, so our kind of history, Chris and I purchased a small traditional CPA firm, probably very similar to all the types of firms of the people watching you right now. No industry niche, generic run-of-the-mill mom and pop businesses. Although Chris and I knew that we wanted from day one to build a specific niche, which is in the dental industry. So prior to meeting you, we had 8 to 9 people. We were kind of running in every which direction. We really didn't know what to analyze, what to look at. I think from my former history of being in a traditional CPA firm, I was looking at how many billable hours, what's the rate we're billing at. And when I finally met you, I kind of realized it really meant nothing. I wasn't getting any useful data out of it.
Yep. Well, that's the traditional model. So Chris, do you want to elaborate on that as well?
Yeah, I would add to that I think, Brent, as part of maybe acquiring his first business, was very hesitant to alienate any of the non-niche clients that we had. And there was a lack of clarity on what were we focused on, what were we marketing on, and were we committing to the niche. And we had already brought a decent amount of dental clients, and I knew that's what we wanted to make it. But when you said that when you interviewed us, and you said one of the conditions of working with you was you have to go 100% dentists only. And it was an aha moment, I think, for Brent finally. And we've since, sold off that book of business, and we are 100% dental only. It's made the business so much easier.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that because some people get a bit scared about the 100% all-in comment. You already had a lot of dental clients when we met. And for some firms, a 100% target market like dental is not for them, and that's okay as well. But as we'll get into the marketing piece, as you guys discovered, the marketing is so much easier when you commit to one, which you did, right? So we can help a firm that's generic. They're a GP firm that wants to be like all entrepreneurs, or specifically for dental, which was awesome. So what was the size back then? I think it was about 2 million from memory in 2019, something like that.
Yeah, so we did right over $2 million in 2019.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so it was a sort of traditional firm, lacked direction, 2 million rev. You had a bunch of dental clients. What was the percentage of your client base that were dental? Do you remember back then?
So back then, we first started, we basically had 30 doctors that started with us. So probably 10%, Chris, 20%, 15%.
In terms of number of clients, yeah. Some maybe 20%. In terms of number of clients. Revenue wise, there were a higher revenue.
Yeah, so 20% probably, but 20% of the 20% of the client base numbers, what do you think that equated to out of the 2 million in revenue for that 20%?
I think by the time we met you, because we had doubled that revenue in the first year, and then we found you, and by the time we met you, I would say it was maybe 60% revenue was dental, 40% non-dental.
All right, so let's call it 1.2 in dental and 800 in other. All right, so let's take it out 2 years. 2 years later, now what does the business look like, Chris?
So we've done quite a few transformations. So today, like Chris said, we're 100% dental. We are at about a staff of 38, and we are serving about 400 dental practices versus 30 just less than 5 years ago.
Wow.
We've really taken what you taught us and diving deep into building accountability for our team. We are extremely focused on accountability, scorecards, and core values. Is really
we did not understand our full value back then, and since starting with you, we've doubled our fees.
Okay,
maybe more than doubled. Yeah,
love it, love it. And you're still growing, and probably don't get much pushback on that either.
Well, and I will say this too. So the one thing that makes Chris and I work is we're very different in that perspective. He's very much a visionary. I'm a, more processing things. So we struggled for a long time with what the market would bear. And I think we both had somewhat of a preconceived or prejudgment that, well, this market will not pay over a certain amount. And you did challenge us and said, raise it till they quit, raise it till they say no. So it took us the better part of, Chris, it wasn't until the end of our tenure with Rob where we finally sat down and said, you know what, he's right. And I've had calls this week, I'm doing tax plannings, my GAP meetings this week, and I've had 5 so far. And on average, during that call, I'm raising fees 30 to 35%, and they're thanking me for the value we provide. So awesome. They know it's there. Don't be afraid to charge what you're worth.
Absolutely. And so what's the revenue looking like for 2022 then? What are we going to hit this year?
So 2022, we are on pace for about 6.1 million.
Wow. All right. That is transformational. All right. Cool. And well,
super proud. If I can add one thing, super proud to also say we are on pace for each partner to be making over $1 million.
Love it. Love it. Well, that's the goal. We typically help firms get to $1 million profit per partner first, and then the hours getting down to like 500 next, right? So that happens next.
That's the next phase. Yes. Buying our time back.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's awesome growth. Let's unpack what are some of the highlight things that you've done. And I want to start with selling off the book of business because I want to understand how much you sold off. We understand why you sold it off, which is so you could focus 100% on the dentists. But how did that change the dynamics of the firm? Let's start with that.
So, Chris, I'll take this one first. So, when we finally said let's pull the trigger on selling the non-dental clients, we sold around $500,000 of revenue, and the number of clients that were actually tied to that revenue, there were probably 600 tax returns or 800 tax returns. That was a tremendous drain on our resources and staffing. Very low fee. When a fee is lower, the client expectation does not change.
No,
I think we learned that very quickly.
Yeah.
So, in our vision or my viewpoint, discounts are non-existent because if you convince me a lower price, you're not going to lower your expectation of me. So by releasing that $500,000, we still grew last year over $1 million. So we really had $1.5 million of growth after we cut those clients loose.
So when you cut them loose, you sold them off, which is great. What did that do to the team dynamics or the focus of the firm? How did all that change?
I think, Brent, you should speak to this as well. But I think in a lot of ways, it makes the job easier because we see the same repetitive patterns over and over and over again. All of the clients are in the same business. We know their vendors. We know the types of things they do in their transactions. The work is always there, but I think it makes the work streamlined and just a little bit more repetitive and easier so that you can be more efficient.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you're dealing with the same market, and a lot of people ask me when we talk about one market focus, and they say, well, isn't that going to get a bit boring, or isn't that not that interesting? Where do you sit with that one?
Are you bored, Brent?
I would say I'm far from bored. So, even though we're in one industry, one niche, every client is different. You often hear clients say, well, I'm unique. And in some ways they're different, but they're not unique. But the makeup of the client, we've got a lot of transactions where clients are selling their businesses, and these are multi-million-dollar deals. So there's always something to do, especially high-level analysis, which is really one of the other things that we benefited from is really attacking the advisory services.
Absolutely.
I would say for the morale of my team members, they were very thankful we cut those clients because
okay.
It was a major drag on their time. It wasn't rewarding to them, the kind of work they were doing. I think there's a fit for every type of client somewhere. It just wasn't with us.
So we've cut off $500,000 worth of revenue. We've gone all in on the dentist, as per my discussion with you 2.5 years ago, that was the criteria of us working together. All great for decision making, but how in the hell did you grow from 30 clients to 400 clients in the last few years? What have you done for growth? What is the marketing plan? I see in your background there, Chris, I see Financial Floss podcast, other things. Talk us about some of the growth things that you've been up to.
So I think it's the beauty of our partnership is I know that business model of that client profile. And I think if you choose to be in a niche market, that has to be your mission. You need to try to know their business better than them. And you need to know where they hang out, where they get their information from. I view my job as being on the cutting edge of the dental industry. I want to know what's coming even before our clients do. So we immerse ourselves in their conferences. We try our best to get speaking time on stage. We give out a ton of value in the times that we can speak without even having a pitch. The value itself is the pitch. And we've had events where we had over 50 people come to our booth after speaking and give us their name and cell phone number and ask for a consultation. We write for the industry publications for dentistry. And most importantly, though, we made some very strong relationships with the strong centers of influence or the coaches that these dentists go to for their business. So while we are just the accounting piece, the tax and accounting piece, we know the coaching side of their business. We speak that same language as the coaches, and the coaches could not find that anywhere else among CPAs. And that I think can be done in any industry, not just ours of dentistry, but and we're truly passionate about it. We know their business. We're excited for them. And when COVID hit, we were there to be a resource at no cost, just to give value. And I would say in 2020, just because of Brent and I taking phone calls with complete strangers who got referred by their friends or saw a webinar we did or some free piece of information we gave out, we grew 40% that year of COVID. And that was a real learning lesson. It was a real, testament to that we were on the right path in the way that we were in our approach, I guess. So
I do remember it was about, I'm going to say April 2020. I got a phone call from either Brent or you, Chris, and we had a chat.
It was Brent.
It was Brent, yeah. Because the dentists were all closed, right? They had to close, right? They closed their offices, and you guys were freaking out, right? Which is understandable. And I can't remember exactly the content of the call, but essentially it was, guys, double down, add value, and you did. And if I recall, you pretty soon thereafter, you did a webinar with like 700 from memory attending. Was that right, Chris?
Yeah, some very large webinars. We created this like rescue plan, this document during COVID of how they were going to have to lay off their employees and what was coming next. And it was a risk. I would say, Brent and I talked about it, and he was kind of sweating. He's like, should we actually put this out there and say that? And that thing went viral.
Yeah.
So.
But it just proves, right, knowing your market, implicitly understanding how they move and shake, and then value adding, just always adding value, whether that be from that document, that webinar, other webinars, speak engagements, podcasts, etc. Just adding value, and the clients will come, as you've discovered.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. So the true context of that call, Rob, was, Rob, can you pause our billing? We don't know if we're going to have a business.
I remember that.
Thankfully, you talked me in the right direction. But I think the real key, Chris said it, a couple of key words: speak engagements and value. Chris and I never, ever go on stage selling anything. So we truly believe in giving content. And if you give content, they will seek you out. So, 3 years ago, on $3 million of collections, we were spending 15% of that on marketing. And you were like, guys, like, that's ridiculous. And I'm proud to say, and I give Chris a lot of credit for it, for kind of helping us get in the right places. We pretty much turned off all of our external marketing. It is all word of mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I've closed 5 clients in the last 4 days. They're not stopping. They continue to call. And so now we're kind of at this almost zero marketing cost position, which is amazing.
Well, other than your marketing manager, which you hired over a year ago, like she's a cost to the business, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that in both in most accounting firms and certainly in most dental firms that we work with, there is no one person there to help with coordinating marketing. As one of that particular hire was not the best hire, but that position, to have that position full time and hiring was one of the best things we could have ever done.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, when I say zero marketing costs, so we have some people doing like marketing activities, but all the money we were spending on trade shows when we met you, the $25,000, $50,000 pops, those are gone.
Awesome. Have you been getting paid for speaking engagements yet?
No, not yet.
Well, I think Rob's sending us a check for this, right?
From 2 mil to 6 mil in 3 years, I think you owe me some more money. No, just joking. But the thing is, what we've done is, there's tons of content strategies out there to grow an accounting firm, right? You've seen it before. And we're a provider of that information and help and coaching. But the big difference here is you guys actually did it. You actually implemented. You hunkered down, you worked, you hired people, you followed the advice, and you did it. You didn't second guess it, which a lot of firms do, and they mull over decisions for years and years and years. You guys just went and did it. So, what was the motivation to implementation? Making all these changes.
I know my answer, Brent. I want you to hear what your answer is first. My motivation was clear from the beginning.
You go ahead.
Yeah, you go first, Chris.
My motivation, plain and simple, is freedom. You were selling the right message to me from the very beginning. It was not as much about, make the $1 million. That's nice, but it's using that to buy freedom and buy the time back, and to do additional things. The growth part, we just, I guess, in our nature, and my push is always, if you're not growing, you're dying. The growth part actually came easier to us as compared to all the firms that were in the groups that we were in. Where we struggled was that profitability part. And we're still implementing on that, Rob. I think the AHR exercise was one of the most powerful exercises, and that's gotten implemented. It's not 100% done. It's client by client. And like Brent said, he now sees it. I think for a long time, he had a hard time seeing it as well. He now sees it, what that average hourly rate is per client and per employee, and can have this conversation. We don't even hold the information back. We share it to the client. This is the hourly rate we get working with you, and this is the hourly rate of our employee. And if the hourly rate we get off of you is lower than that cost of the employee, this is not a win-win. So and they've been very understanding of that. And I think that was we had a lot of fear. I personally, I think Brent had more fear on the growth. I had more fear on the fees that we were charging. Mm-hmm. And we've kind of started to really pull those together.
Brent, what was your motivator? If Chris wanted freedom, time, money to buy time, and then build, a business around that, what was your motivation?
So for me, I'm getting ready to turn 50, and I have always been the person that is 100% all in. I will do anything and everything to try to please and help my clients, and I still do. But what I realized is that the value that I placed on what I do was in completing tax returns, and that is the least valuable thing that I do. So for me, it was being able to get out of a compliance function all day, every day. I feel like through a lot of years, I neglected my family, and I really want more time to be able to do things with them. Providing a great place to work for our employees, but probably freedom as well in a different way, to make up for all the time I feel like I lost sitting behind a desk preparing a 1040. And then just to hit back on Chris, if you were to ask me the most powerful thing that we learned from you, it was the AHR. Mm-hmm. So as I'm going through this now, so I'm doing my tax or GAAP meetings, as I'm going through it and started looking at it, neither Chris nor I ever realized how much money we were losing when servicing some clients. So, for example, we've got this client that pays us $20,000 a year, but what I realized through the AHR project was every hour we worked, Chris and I were losing $40.
Mm-hmm.
So if we put in 200 hours and we lose $8,000 a year just on that one client, how are the other 399? So it's given us clarity to be able to really kind of either increase the fees or they possibly need to exit.
Revenue clients had the lowest AHR.
Yep. And there's a whole process around that, as you know, which one identification and then the process of how do we raise that. Guys,
let me add one more thing real quick. I think that you'll like, and it's important. One thing that was unique about us when we came to you, we were already had everybody on monthly recurring revenue,
mm-hmm.
monthly recurring billing. That made it so much easier for us to scale and move faster. I think a lot of firms that were in our groups and that you deal with, that's one of their biggest hurdles is how do they get off the hourly billing and all that. We didn't have that in our way. And I would tell anyone that if that is something you have to convert to as fast as possible. And if you have clientele who are not willing to work that way with you, then you need new clientele. We don't have to spend any resources and time chasing accounts receivable at all.
Love it. I love everything about what you're saying. So let's say there's a firm looking to change, right? They're motivated for whatever reason. What would you advise them, if they're either looking at us or looking to make some changes? What would be your advice to them, Chris?
Well, I think, we all live kind of in our own box or in our own comfort zone, and you need to understand that the magic happens outside of that. If you're not happy with the way things are right now, what's your plan for change? Because if you keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, that's the definition of insanity. I think you need to be open-minded to coaching and to collaborative groups and learning from others that there is a different way, and that, the traditional accounting model that most everyone was probably brought up in, it's broken, it's flawed, it's outdated, it needs to be thrown out. So if you're not on regular recurring revenue business, if you don't have a more simplistic, you don't have to be 100% niche like we are, but if you don't have a target of who your ideal client avatar is, and if you can't fully know the value of everything you're providing them and be able to show the clients and know how much time you're spending with them and your average hourly rate, you've got to give this a try. I mean, I zero regrets. It seemed like a lot of money to us when we were first getting started. Like you said, Rob, it was worth, tenfold. So I would totally endorse.
Thank you, man.
You guys, it was just incredible.
Brent, what about you? What would you say to a new firm wanting to change?
So I truly believe in the power of coaching. I think that there is no single person on this planet that doesn't have something they can learn. And I think just getting out with what I loved about your group was having other firms with us and just hearing other CPAs talk about how they're doing things. The light bulb just started clicking. So having a coach to me is probably the best investment anybody can make, because you don't know it all. You can't do it all. Just have an open mind. And, I would say, don't be as hesitant as I was to actually jump off the diving board. So I heard you and we listened to you, and, it took me months and Chris and I were finally like, you know what, he's right. He actually, that Rob Nixon knows what he's talking about.
There you go. Guys, I wish you every success. Thank you for that. Onwards and upwards. It's no end in sight with what you've got going on. We've got advisory services. We've completely changed the business itself. And how high is high? I don't know, but it'd be interesting to catch up in a couple of years to see, so what's the last 2 years been look like? So, because what I find is we've spent a couple of years together, and at some point in time, we don't need each other, so to speak, right? Because the foundations are done, you know what to do, just go and fly. That's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. That's so cool. So cool.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you very much. And Wendy, I had to give her a shout out. She's amazing.
Wendy is amazing. Absolutely. I'm just going to